Let's talk about some of the myths that you bring up in your book, and I'm reading them going, I never thought about that. I mean, you talk about, I guess, female and the feminists against female circumcision, which I can understand. Terrible, terrible story. But as you said, the same people burst out laughing that Lorena Bobbitt...
Jokes, yeah. And we joke about Lorena Bobbitt cutting off the
tossing it into a
penis
field.
and tossing it into a field, and I couldn't imagine somebody joking about, oh, his wife had an affair, so he cut off her clitoris and tossed it into the field, or or stepped on it, or whatever.
You'd never work again.
I mean, it would be disgusting, and I would be totally opposed to
it's
anybody
not
doing
right
that. Exactly.
either way. Do you think that that women in the media fare better? I'm not talking about jobs like this or anything. I'm talking about ad campaigns or whatever. Are we oversensitive to women, and are we undersensitive to men? Are they being made to look?
Well, one of the studies that I talked about in Women Can't Hear What Men Don't Say is the looking at advertisements and finding that 100% of advertisements in which only one sex was portrayed as a jerk, it was the man portrayed as a jerk.
Yeah.
And that there were times when both sexes were portrayed as a jerk, and times, of course, when neither sex, but when it was only one sex, it was 100% of the time.
But there was a time, to be fair, where the women...
Yes, now in the old days, you'd portray, like in the I Love Lucy days, let's say, you'd portray women as a jerk and men as jerks as well. Or in the Jackie Gleason days, it was usually the man was portrayed as big braggart, and then boom, he'd come down and recognize the value of his wiser wife, if you know what I mean. The same with Archie Bunker. But at least it was mixed. I have no problems with male bashing and female bashing. I have problems when they become disproportionate.
Is there a TV show that bothers you like that? Is there one area?
Well, let's see. I watch Cheers the most because I enjoy it the most.
You think they?
But they don't. It doesn't. You know something? The only thing that I watch these things and I just enjoy them.
Well, that's what we're supposed to do. We can think too much.
But then I go back to it and I say, oh, let's look at what's happening here. And it's mostly that in order to be a successful comedy nowadays, you almost always have to have a prime time a jerk in order to make it. But
somebody's got to do it. We can't take it, can't we? I mean, we can't get too...
Well, but I mean, as long as, again, as it isn't always the male having to be that jerk, and there needs to be a balance between the two.
Women in crime.
Yes.
Carla Faye Tucker brought this whole issue out to the front. Carla Faye Tucker was kind of cute. She hacked someone to death, and she was on death row, and there was a sense that there was a rally to get her off death row because she was pretty. Do you agree?
Yes, and it's not just Carla Faye Tucker. It is at every single level. If a woman and man are in a drug partnership together and they're both caught, the woman is much more likely to get the option to plea bargain. So then she's less likely to have a criminal record if caught a second time around. At the level of the actual trial, she's much less likely for the same crime, and I list the crimes and compare the differences, to get a much shorter sentence. She's much more likely to get probation. And then at the next level, she's less likely to get a death penalty, be on death row, but almost never is a woman, even if she's on death row, actually executed. That is like less than 1/10 of 1% of the people executed are women.
So they get...
It's a totally different, every level we treat the woman much more leniently.
Do the feminists recognize this? Are women talking about this, or are they not talking about it?
It's not being talked about. It's even covered up in such fascinating ways. Like when men and women kill, men often kill with a gun or a knife. They kill directly. When a woman kills a man, she's much more likely to hire somebody to do the killing or persuade a boyfriend to do the killing. The moment she hires somebody to do the killing, if she ends up getting caught, the FBI does not record it as a woman killing a man. They record it as a multiple offender killing. So you don't even see it as they're out of the stats of the women killing the men. But there's thousands of things we haven't questioned like that because we haven't had a men's movement to question that. We have had a feminist movement to question bias statistics in the other direction.
Are we on the verge of a major men's movement?
We're on the verge of a slow, eventually accumulating men's movement that will start with the fathers area. It will, at the beginning of the 21st century, the need for men to be involved with the family will be somewhat like the need for women to be involved in the workplace in the last third of the last 20th century.
So there'll be a taking back.
There'll be that. There'll be men's birth control. There'll be a number of other things. Will be in the positive line of things. We will begin to see team sports for women to a greater degree. Team sports for women will do one of the greatest positive things for women in the future. To
So I'm going to be making nachos and pouring myself a glass of wine watching women playing football?
Not that type of team sports. But I mean, your daughter playing not just soccer in high school, but unsupervised soccer, where she's not just being protected all the time.
But so that's good.
And that's good, exactly. Yeah. That team sports is good. The team sports where violence is a prerequisite to becoming successful, that's where the borderline is crossed.
Okay. Women and the workplace. We're hearing all sorts of statistics, which are quite frightening, that women can't have it all because they're working really hard and they're still doing all the work in the house. Okay. Do you agree?
Well, nobody can have it all. Women are working hard. Men are also working hard. What we've missed is when a housework survey does a study of housework, it is a sexist survey, because the word housework triggers in a person's mind the type of work a woman does around the house.
So we should call it something
If a man has remodeled a room in the house, and a housework surveyor comes and says, how much housework did you do? He might very well say nothing, because he doesn't think of remodeling or shoveling snow, or going on the roof to repair a leak that came from snow settling on the roof, or putting up screen windows, or taking a ladder to the attic, or cleaning out the cellar.
Housework.
Those are all, those are contributions to the home. We should frame it that way. The second bias in the housework area is that we say full-time working women work more around the house than full-time working men do. That's true, but what we don't understand is that the average full-time working man works 10 hours more per week outside the home than the average full-time working woman works outside the home. So it is natural that the full-time working woman who works less outside the home will work more inside the home.
Okay. Fight Club. What do you think of that whole deal? I mean, it's brought this issue to bear.
Sure. It is part of the instinct of men to fight, and it is also part of that's part of the old instinct that I'm saying was part of our genetic heritage. We need to teach men to love. If we have affirmative action programs for women, we have to have affirmative action programs for men to be able to communicate difficult feelings better, to express our feelings better, to be able to. Men commit suicide 1,350% more frequently than women do.
I know, but they don't want to talk about it. We've tried it. It's tough to get you guys to talk about stuff. It's a lot of work.
Because on the one level we're saying men talk. On the other level, when men do speak up, oftentimes they feel that they're emotionally withdrawn from or sexually withdrawn from. So it's a multi-level, multi-pronged effort that we have to make. We can't say men. We can't, on the one hand, be playing cheerleader to the man who's a football player. And then, because very few football players have noticed that when they lose their position on the team, that the cheerleader comes up to them and says, I'm going to continue cheering for you. You're so vulnerable, and you're so open, and stuff like that.
But that happens with women too. They just don't need the cheerleader, that's all. Football players are like that too. When the cheerleader loses a job, he might not want to go out with her anymore.
Absolutely. Now,
it's a symbiotic relationship.
It's 100% symbiotic relationship. And what the feminist movement helped us do is question the process of always treating women as sex objects. What no one has helped us do is to question the process of helping us, of the way we treat men as success objects.
And Mr. Moneybags.
And yes. And so I'm saying balance the equation.
Okay, we have to wrap up, but I got to ask you, I got to congratulate you for including President Clinton in this book. It was left out of Susan Faludi's book for the most part. How important was that whole study? Because this discussion, we were having it in bars and over dinner tables and everything. Who's to blame? Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? How important was that?
Well, first of all, the man always loses when in this type of case.
Not with President Clinton. He hired people to go out and defame people and called her a stalker. He had all the money and power to cover it up.
I would take issue with the degree to which you're saying that. I would say